Hi witches, so today I wanted to do the Rainbow Tarot Decks tag, which was a tag which I've seen circulating around YouTube, but I believe it was originally created by Meadowlark Mystic, so I'll pop their video link down below, but the basic idea is that you pick one deck for each color of the rainbow. So I'm going to get started with red. So the deck for me that speaks red is the Maiden Oracle by Leila and Olive. Now, it's not hugely red, but of all the decks in my collection, this is probably the most red out of all of them. There's quite a bit of red in the box, but it's very kind of like subtle. So you'll see like the backs are quite red and black, but then the fronts, there's not as much red as compared to some of the other colors in my decks. But to me, yeah, this deck really does feel very red to me. There's a few other kind of pinky, purpley colors in it, but it's mostly just like black, this sepia color, and reds. So this is the deck that is red to me. Now for the deck that is orange, I have the Oracle of Essences. And this is an interesting deck. It's very colorful, it's very rainbow. However, to me, it does feel very orange. So the edges of this kind of like matte gold, it's almost kind of orangey. And I feel like there's quite a lot of cards that are very orange, which makes sense because obviously the idea behind it is that it's to do with oils and the essences of those essential oils. And so there's quite a lot of ones which are to do with orange. But then there's other ones like blue tansy, and this is still very orange. So yeah, there just feels like there's quite a lot of orange in this deck, which is why I chose it for orange. Now the next color is yellow, which is admittedly probably my least favorite color. I don't have a lot of yellow in my decks because I don't particularly like the color yellow. But having said that, I do have one deck that I think has the most yellow out of all of my decks, and that is the Australian Wildflower reading cards by Cheralyn Darcey. So this deck has flowers in it, but Australian wildflowers, and there are quite a lot of Australian wildflowers which are yellow. So yeah. And also in this deck, there's, even if it's not particularly yellow, I just find that some of the colors that Cheralyn uses are kind of greeny yellow. So they do feel very bright and vibrant. So this is probably the deck that most encompasses the color yellow for me in my collection. Now for green, this deck's not really a surprise. I even keep a green moss agate crystal in it. I've actually edged it in green, and that is the Forest of Enchantment Tarot. So this entire deck is just green everywhere. It is gorgeous, and I do quite like the color green. There is just so much green in this deck. It's very earthy, which is one of the reasons why I love it. And yeah, the artwork is just gorgeous. It's very old world kind of fantasy. And yeah, it's very calming. So yeah, this is my deck for green. Moving on to blue, I actually keep this deck in a blue tarot wrap because it feels so blue to me. And I have even edged it in blue, and like with the Forest of Enchantment, the backs match. So this is my blue deck. This is the Everyday Witch Tarot, and yeah, like the Forest of Enchantment, there's just so much blue in this deck. Interestingly enough, I was also going to pull out the Everyday Witch Oracle, which I also have and also love, but I noticed that one's a lot more rainbow, whereas the tarot deck does feel more blue. Even like the sun card, like there's so much blue in there, and it's the sun card. So there's just, I just find there's all these little pops of blue, which do feel quite magical in here. So that's my deck for blue. Indigo is a bit of a different one, and I think that the deck that most fits in with indigo, or I should say rather this deck fits most with indigo, is the Pythonic Tarot by Jessica Shaw. So the backs are black and white. I've edged it in black. But you know that I love this deck. There is, oh, oops. So there is just so much indigo in this deck, that really deep bluey purple color. It's just everywhere in this deck, and I think that's why I'm drawn to it so much. Yeah, there's just so much of that indigo color through this deck. And it feels very dark, very witchy, very magical. And yeah, this is basically my favorite tarot deck ever, and the one that I always reach for. So yeah. And last but definitely not least is violet, which is probably one of my favorite colors of the entire rainbow. I keep it in this kind of violet-y colored deck bag. I haven't edged this deck because, well, you'll see in a moment, although the card backs are very purpley violet, it's actually this cool gray kind of silvery color, which just kind of comes naturally because it's got silver borders. And so I haven't edged this deck, even though I probably could. I kind of just like this color which it comes with. So this is the Shadowscapes Tarot, which I feel like if you are in the tarot community, everyone knows this deck. But it is just so full of violet tones, which is one of the main reasons I picked it up. It was actually the first tarot deck that I ever bought for myself because I just loved the colors so much. There are always little pops of violet all throughout the deck in various places. So yeah, very violet. Having said that, I feel like I don't reach for this deck as much as I used to, just because I have other decks now, but it's just, I mean, it's got just such gorgeous artwork. So I need to remind myself to work with it a bit more. And I have one more, which is a bit of a bonus. And this is a deck which has only very, very recently came into my possession, and that is the Cosmic Guidance Oracle cards by Dreamy Moons. So this entire deck is black, white, silver, and violet. So the backgrounds are violet watercolor, and it was created that way because it's meant to relate to and connect with the crown chakra, which is associated with the color violet. And so this entire deck is just full of violet tones, and I just couldn't resist it. I wasn't going to buy it initially, but then I thought, how many decks have this color palette, which is just me all over? So I ended up buying it, and I'm really glad that I did because it is just stunning, and I'm really looking forward to using it and working with it more. So those were my rainbow decks, and I hope that you enjoyed watching it. And I love watching these tarot tags on YouTube, so if you've done one, please let me know down in the comments so I can go check it out, because I find it really interesting and cool just to see what different kinds of colorful decks there are that are out there. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.